Hey, sounds good. It's me, Mr. Allen, again with another one of your flip lessons. Sorry about the noise. We're in the copy room right now, but you should have out your flip lesson for tonight. It's going to be on the Constitutional Convention. This should be relatively short. You're going to fill in the blanks as you go. A little bit of review, a little bit of important people, key stuff about the convention. All right, here we go. All right, let me get all these out here first. All right, so first, a little review. Let's talk about the weaknesses of the Articles of Confederation, all right? First, each state had one vote of Congress regardless of size. You could send as many delegates as you wanted, but you're still only going to get one vote. Congress did not have the power to tax. They had to either ask the states for money or to borrow money from the states. That wasn't working. The economy was kind of in shambles. There was no executive branch, right? So there's no overarching figure that can tell the states kind of what to do and what not to do. There's no national court system, so there's an issue between states. They can't go and say, oh, this is kind of a unbiased person that can take care of the situation. Amendments required a unanimous vote, right? You needed all 13 states to change anything about the government. You needed 9 states to just make something a law. So it was a very, very slow process. Not a lot of stuff was getting done. States printed their own money, which is going to cause some problems as well. Economically, you're going to have a bunch of states with money that they don't know whose money equals what. They don't know how to trade. So basically, the government can't really do a whole heck of a lot. The trading has kind of stopped. Inflation is a big problem. Political and economic issues with the Articles of Confederation. So the Philadelphia Convention, the delegates at Congress decide, you know what, this isn't really working, so they're going to decide to meet in Philadelphia in 1787 to kind of discuss what was happening. Originally, most states sent delegates thinking that they were just going to fix the Articles of Confederation. Because remember, still at this time, most people and most politicians, most delegates just thought that the Articles of Confederation needed fixing, not that they needed a whole new government. They thought having power with the states was fine. They just needed to make a couple of quick fixes. Quickly at the Philadelphia Convention, it became very, very clear that that was not going to be the case, that we were going to start a whole new government. We're going to take some of that state power, give it to the national branches. We're going to create a new system of government, create new branches of government, and use a lot of these different political ideas that have been floating around for a while in our new government. Key figures of the Constitution. All right, George Washington, he's going to preside over the Constitution. He's going to be the leader, but he doesn't really get involved in much of the debates. He just kind of keeps things flowing a little bit. James Madison is called the father of the Constitution. Now, I know it says because he wrote it. He didn't really write it. He kept notes based on what everybody else was writing, and he physically wrote the stuff down as they made the decisions, but he wasn't the only author. It was everyone at the convention. Let me get out of the way of Alexander Hamilton. Alexander Hamilton was one of the strong proponents of a strong national government. If he had his way, they would have just made George Washington the king, and that would have been the end of it. Benjamin Franklin, on the other side of that, coupled with Thomas Jefferson and some of the other folks, he was somebody who thought that he was from Pennsylvania. He thought the states should have more power. George Mason, he was a person who thought, again, the states should have more power. He was also somebody that thought the Constitution needed to have way more rights included in it and a protection for rights, and he was one of the strongest proponents of a Bill of Rights. And then lastly, Roger Sherman of Connecticut. He's going to be credited for coming up with a system that really fought for making sure the small states weren't being abused with power, making sure they were gaining representation. Okay, so what were the key issues they had? There's a lot of issues, but for us, these are the top 3 that we're going to talk about in socialism, right? Number 1, they had to discuss about how to deal with slavery. As we saw from the Northwest Ordinance, there was already some swaying of ideas on slavery. The North was starting to not see it as a necessity, economically, politically, and socially, where it was becoming more entrenched in the South. So how are these two sides going to deal with that? How to represent the big states and the small states? How to make sure Virginia doesn't have too much power, but also conversely, Delaware or New Jersey doesn't have too much power, taking away from Virginia. How do we make sure those are equally so states don't feel one side is getting another power? We also created an entirely new branch called the president. How do we elect this person? How do we ensure that this person isn't just going to be a king? This person isn't going to take over all the power. All right. All right, that's our flip lesson for tonight. If you have any questions or comments, hit me up on Schoology or send a message to the board. If there's no any questions, hopefully we did a great job and we can get a more 100% that we got last time. All right, see you guys.